Joining us today is Simon Taylor, Managing Director of Stellar Resources. So while the market continues to chase gold and copper, Simon's focused on tin, a metal that's actually quietly surged to nearly 37,000 US dollars per ton as Myanmar supply collapsed and Indonesia's tightened exports. Welcome, Simon. How are you?
I'm good, G. Thanks very much for having us today.
Thank you. Well, look, Simon, to start off with, like for investors who are new to Stellar Resources, can you start by giving us a quick overview of the company and your focus?
Sure. Look, we're, as you mentioned, very much a tin-focused company. We've got a project in Western Tasmania. It's the
Mm-hmm.
highest grade underdeveloped tin project in Australia and third globally. And we're very focused at the moment on moving our project through the pre-feasibility study. We've got 2 rigs on site, and our aim is to become a top 10 global tin producer, and we're going to prove that through our pre-feasibility work and further studies over the next 12 to 18 months.
Thank you. So behind you, Simon, is that where Heemskirk is? Because I've been told it's been described as Australia's highest grade undeveloped tin project and one of the top 3 globally. Like, why does this really make it stand out?
Yeah, it is actually the photo behind me. You can see just where my finger is here. This is the top of one of our deposits called Queen Hill. This was
Mhm.
mined in the 1890s, 1900s for lead, zinc, and silver. And below that is the tin mineralisation that was never processed back then. And in fact, up in the hills behind me, you can see here is the Renison Tin Mine, which is Australia's only underground tin mine,
Mhm.
and produces about 4% of global supply at the moment. So quite a unique location. Western Tasmania, it is one of the world-class tin belts in the world. And this area here where we're working is an area that's been mined in the past. Environmentally, it's all regrowth, an area that will get permitted. And we're very, very confident of getting the project through the next phases.
Sure. And look, I was quite staggered when I did some research on tin. I mean, at nearly US $37,000 per ton. Like, what is this material really actually used in on a daily basis?
So it's primarily used for solder. 50% of tin goes into solder. So as we
Hmm.
electrify the planet and AI and electric vehicles and everything, it's the glue that holds everything together. So we need to find more copper. What holds the copper wires together is tin,
Hmm.
and it's the main use is in solder. You mentioned $37,000 a ton. So if you for investors to try and comprehend what does that mean in gold terms or copper terms, so we've got a 1% tin ore body. So times that by 3 for copper and times that
Hmm.
by 4 for gold. So we've got a 4 gram per ton gold ore body, 3% copper. That's how it kind of translates to people understanding the value of our deposit.
Thank you. And look, I was furthermore in one of your other presentations, you were projecting about 3,000 to 3,500 tons annually for your project. Am I right?
Yeah, we're aiming in our feasibility study to get to that 3,000 to 3,500 tonnes per annum over a 10 to 12-year mine life, which
Hmm.
would be about 1% of global supply. And that's just a start for us. We believe that's a start for the project. We have other projects nearby as well that could feed into our production profile. But as a starter for Heemskirk, we're aiming for 3,000 to 3,500 tonnes of tin. And to put that in context, the Renison Tin Mine, which is up the road from us, does about 10,000 tonnes per annum.
Thank you. Now, look, your latest scoping study shows strong economics and upside potential. I mean, what key improvements are you targeting in the upcoming PFS?
Yeah, so the scoping study was really done on a much smaller scale project, 350,000 tonnes per annum a year. We're looking to double that production.
Hmm.
We're also looking to bring in ore sorting, which wasn't part of the feasibility work, which will save on OPEX and CAPEX. So really ramping up a much bigger project on bigger production profile, more tin coming out of the ground and more production. So it's just getting bigger as we do our studies.
Thank you. Now, look, you've achieved excellent results from ore sorting. Can you explain how this technology could impact costs and recoveries? And just for my knowledge as well, can you describe
Yeah.
as well, like what ore sorting really is?
Yeah, ore sorting is a fantastic technology, and essentially it is sorting ore from waste. So
Okay.
you mine your product underground, you bring it to the surface, you put it through a rough crush, and then it goes through a machine, a very clever machine that sorts out what is ore and what is waste. And the way we do it for tin is that tin is a the mineral cassiterite, which is what we're after, is a very dense mineral. It's very heavy. So we're
Mm-hmm.
sorting our ore by density or weight
Mm-hmm.
versus waste, which is a lot lighter. So you put material through the ore sorting machine. It's very clever. You've got an XRT detection that sorts out that material there is heavier than this material. This material, the heavy material, has cassiterite in it, and it sorts it out that way. And we're finding we can actually get rid of sort of 20% of waste material as we go through the ore sorter. And then what that means is you're then putting the product through the plant. You're putting 20% less tons through your plant, so your OPEX comes down. The 20% waste can go down the mine, and it also means you're going to have less tailings going into your tailings, your volume of your tailings. So it's essentially upgrading your tin. It's getting rid of material, so you're saving on processing costs, and you're saving costs all around. So it's a wonderful technology. We know it works for tin. We know that the Renison mine, which is 15 kilometres away, again up on that hill, has been using ore sorting for 5 or 6 years. So we've got all that technology already in play, and it'll be a great benefit for the project.
Thank you. Now, look, the latest drilling at Queen Hill and Seven delivered strong intercepts. I mean, how are these shaping the next resource upgrade?
Yeah, so what we're primarily doing at the moment is drilling very much into our inferred resource to
Mm-hmm.
bring that material into an indicated resource, and then we can use that resource in the pre-feasibility study.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting some fantastic intersections. At Severn, we had 20 odd metres at 1.97% in the inferred, which is the best hole on the program, actually on the project to date.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're getting some much deeper holes in at the moment, hole 187 and wedges out of 187, which are giving us, over 65-metre wide zones of tin mineralisation. And all of that we can then convert from an inferred to indicated category. So in our pre-feasibility work, rule of thumb is you use about 85% of indicated material and
Mm-hmm.
15% of inferred material. And it's about converting all that inferred material across to the indicated category. So we're pretty confident on the resource, and we find that the grade is actually starting to increase as we get deeper, which is quite typical of these tin systems.
I mean, I want to segue back into earlier you mentioned you are Australia's top undeveloped tin operation, and yet globally you're the third. How does that position Stella to capitalize on the current momentum?
Look, grade in every commodity is king. So the higher grade you've got, the more profits you're going to make potentially, and you're more attractive to investors. And the thing with tin is you then have to convert. It's not like pouring a gold bar. You've got to convert that tin into a concentrate,
Mm-hmm.
and then that concentrate is then sold offshore. So we'll be able to produce a good high quality concentrate.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be able to produce good profits because we've got high grade material. Our scoping studies showed very good all-in sustaining costs, and on top of the grade is that as Australia's best underdeveloped project is it's a tier one jurisdiction. So it's an unencumbered potential offtake, and we think that'll be very attractive as we progress our studies.
And you mentioned you're thinking about 12-year mine life. Is that right?
Yeah, the scoping study showed a 12-year mine life, but that was on a much smaller 350,000 tonne per annum operation. We're looking to double that production and aim for an initial 8 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of what we've got, though, is that the drilling is only really looking at the top 600 metres of the resource. And we believe the resource will potentially can go down as deep as 1.2, 1.3 kilometres before we get to the granite. And the granite is the main source of the mineralisation as we see at Renison. We've actually got a larger resource than the reserve that started at Renison in 1968. They had 4 million tonnes of reserve. And that's still going now, 50 years later, because the mineralisation continues at depth.
Right. Thank you. Now, look, with supply disruptions in regions like the DRC and Myanmar, how does operating in Tasmania give Stella a strategic advantage? And given you've said it is a tier 1 jurisdiction.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the tin space is the supply side is Indonesia, Myanmar, the Congo, fairly unreliable jurisdictions where there has been problems particularly over the last 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
We've had the confiscation of mines in Indonesia more recently with illegal miners. We've had Myanmar where operations have been closed since 2023. They're slowly starting up the production profile from there. So we see our offtake as well sought after because it's a reliable jurisdiction. We will truck our concentrate 150 kilometres from the project you can see behind me to the ports. They're about 150 kilometres away on a sealed road, and then from there it'll go off to the off-takers. So we believe it'll be well sought after. I'm actually heading up to Asia, the Asia Tin Week next week in Hong Kong, and meeting with various groups that are looking for potential offtake, as we progress the project.
I guess, is this why you're so bullish on thinking that you have the possibility and aspirations to be a top 10 producer in the world when 30% of the current top 10 are kind of incumbent?
Yeah, and it's also about our production profile. This project will produce a good volume of tin, and we only see that getting bigger from there. We have other projects nearby. We've got the East Renison project, which is 10 kilometres away. We've got Granite Tor, which is further up the road. So we could potentially see Heemskirk as a production hub. This is a world-class tin province, and there hasn't been a lot of exploration outside of the known deposits. And what we're excited about, we've recently just raised $9.5 million which we announced this week, and
yes.
Some of that money is now going to go into brownfields work and looking at deposits around where our main base is. And we're excited to get into some of those areas where we've got a much better geological understanding of why the system is there from the work we've been doing over the last 2 years. So, we're excited to get some more holes into some other areas.
Thank you. Now, look, can you tell us more about the MOUs you've signed for nearby infrastructure and how that actually could fast track your development?
Yeah, so interestingly, where we are, as I mentioned earlier on, that hill behind us is all regrowth. That was all cleared in the 1890s, 1900s. So we're not in an area of any environmental sensitivities. And so we're confident that we can get permitting as we go down the path to get approval for the development of the mine. And with respect to a processing plant, we have some options where we could build our own plant where we are, or we could look at existing infrastructure. And the two MOUs that we've signed, one is over an area called Comstock, which was an old lead zinc mine that was closed in the 90s, which has existing areas for ROM pads and flat levels for a possible plant. And the other MOU we've signed is with an existing plant that's in care and maintenance, which is less than 10 kilometres from our project, which is the AOB nickel mine. So we're looking at both those options as potentially fast tracking getting into production. So we're doing that work at the moment.
Sounds promising, Simon. Now, look, you touched on it earlier. I want to go back to this. You recently completed a $9.5 million placement, bringing your total funds raised this year to actually nearly $12 million. Can you tell us about the investor support you're receiving and how these funds are now going to be allocated across Heemskirk, infrastructure studies and exploration?
Yeah, no, we're very delighted with the placement over the last couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
The money was placed with a lot of the existing shareholders. Plus, we had some new funds that have come into the placement as well to back the project. So we've, as you mentioned, the combination of the 9.5 million, and we recently raised 2.9 million in options in the last couple of months. And if you put all that together with our cash balance at the end of September, we're sitting on a healthy cash balance to move forward. As I mentioned, a lot of those funds will be going into completing the pre-feasibility and
Mm-hmm.
also starting the bankable, which will flow into next year. Plus, we'll have a smaller allocation going into brownfields and some of the other projects. But predominantly, the focus is to get Heemskirk development ready, but at the same time, we'll put some holes into some of the other projects.
Sure. Look, like I had an opportunity to look at your register. Could you talk to me a little bit more about the institutional investors that you're actually that have invested in Stellar?
Yeah, sure. So look, Stella's been around for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. We came in about 2 years ago as a new, we changed the management and brought in a new team, and from that we've been able to attract, some very good institutional backers. We've got Nero Resource Fund on there. We've got Paradise on there, Marford. So the institutions now hold sort of close to 35% of us,
Mm-hmm.
which is great, and have prorated or have taken up options recently in the raisings. And then we've got some really good high net worth guys on the register that have come in as well. So we're really pleased with that support, and we're
Mm-hmm.
pleased with the outlook they have on tin as a great commodity, and backing that story.
Thank you. Now, look, you're advancing towards your PFS and potential development decision. What sort of key milestones, like, should investors now keep an eye out for in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so really, we've got 2 rigs going. We'll have more drilling results coming from Severn, where we're drilling some
Mm-hmm.
deep holes. We'll also have some metallurgical results coming from the network we're doing in the PFS as we move through and trying to and look to design our flow sheet for tin.
Mm-hmm.
Resource upgrades. We potentially will have a resource out by the end of the year. We keep finding tin, so we keep finding more tin in our drilling.
Mm-hmm.
And with a PFS, once you draw a line in the sand, you're sort of stuck to that resource size. As we keep finding more tin, we're very keen to keep drilling more holes. So we'll either have our resource out end of this year or very, very early next year. The PFS, we're aiming for first half of next year. And on the back of that, we will lodge our notice of intent, which is our environmental approvals. So we will have all that done by June next year, and then we'll move into our bankable or definitive feasibility study.
Thank you. Now, look, Simon, one last question. Any words do you have for our investors or members that are sitting on the sideline, that they've already got? Obviously, they've got their gold stocks, they've got some copper stocks, silver stocks, and even lithium stocks. But you're kind of the first one we've spoken to with tin. What words do you have for them?
Look, there are very few tin companies you can invest in on the ASX. Australia, if you were to buy a tin producer
Mm-hmm.
globally, you can buy tin globally. You can buy Metals X on the ASX, or you could buy a company called Alpha Min on the TSX that have a mine in the Congo. And outside of that, it's a whole broad sweep of junior explorers, and there's very few. The tin thematic looks really good. The supply demand thematic for tin is excellent. Everyone's saying we need more copper. What holds those copper wires together is tin. The outlook is fantastic for tin, and I'd advise people that want some exposure to a metal that's under the radar and will be constantly needed as we electrify the planet, then they should be looking at some tin exposure.
Thank you, Simon. So we'll speak again in 6 months.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much for having us.
Pleasure.